This is Surviving Survivor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Surviving Survivor. The guests just keep on rolling in, and it's a great time to be here, especially with Annie Davis joining us this week. Welcome to Surviving Survivor. We're so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You got voted off last week. We were huge fans of you. We're really upset about that.
Me too.
How has life been for you the last 2 weeks? Kind of your premiere getting on and now being voted off.
I mean, it's this whirlwind of emotions, right? Good, bad, terrified. You have no idea what's going to show up on the screen. You don't, because when you film this show, they have thousands of hours, right? Of every Survivor contestant, of every tribe, all the stuff that's going on. So you really have no idea until you see it on the big screen, what they're going to show, how they're going to edit it, how they're going to make you look, how they're going to kind of develop your personality the way that they want to do it for the show. So yeah, it's a big scary thing to see all this for the first time with all these people around and, your castmates and your family and your friends and a bunch of strangers. So like I say, it's kind of a whirlwind of emotions, mostly good though.
How has life changed for you over the last 2 weeks? I feel like you're kind of used to being in front of a lot of people since you are a performer, you are a musician. So now being in front of like thousands and maybe millions of people, like how has life changed for you?
It's pretty crazy actually to think that this show has the reach that it has, because I mean, I've loved this thing since the beginning. I've been watching Survivor since Richard Hatch got naked on national television. I've loved this show forever. But I just did an interview with Australia the other day, and I thought, oh my God, this is so cool that all of these people are connected by this one show and this journey that we're all on. So I think it's I have been in the public eye for a little while with my band. And so this just feels like that on steroids. We were playing this watch party show in Boston this last week, and it was just, 200 to 400 people crammed into this venue watching my band play, and then watching my dumbass get voted out, and watching people say things about me that they were like, oh my God, you're not like that at all. How do you reconcile watching yourself and then what you're like in real life and all the things? So it's been an interesting ride for sure in just these couple of weeks, and I'm sure it's going to get even crazier. This feels like the beginning of something, not the end. So I can report back in about a year about how my life is changing, by being on this show. But so far, it's been a really cool journey. It really has.
So, before we get into your music and kind of how things are going currently and what we can expect in the future, if we take a few minutes to dive deep into what you actually did on the island. Well, you weren't there too long. We got to see a good amount of what you were up to, but one thing we were curious about is that we saw you form a bond with Alex super early on, and we were kind of curious what led to that connection, but then also how it shaped your experience both strategically and also on the island.
Yeah, that's a cool question. I went into this show kind of having a plan and the strategy that I thought might work for me, because I was, automatically a little bit on the outside of this tribe. I'm 11 years older than the next person, and then probably 20 years older than almost everybody else on my tribe. And so I knew going in, I was going to have to provide some value somewhere between, besides connecting with them on the generational things that maybe I don't know about Gen Xers or Gen Z and all this. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go in, I'm a hard worker, I'm strong. I'm going to go in and build a shelter and do whatever I can around camp to help the tribe and try to contribute in challenges and all of that. And so when I was on the mat with my team, my tribe at the very beginning, I wanted to very quickly pick an ally. And I kind of looked at everybody and I thought, well, this person has this quality and that person has that quality. But there was something about Alex. I was like, he's friendly. He's got a good sense of humor. We were smiley, right away. He just seemed like somebody that was strong enough, but not necessarily Jake strong, because I felt like Jake, being the big beefcake guy, was going to be a target pretty fast, whether for my tribe or for, a merge situation. So I thought, I don't know that I want to align with the guy that's going to be the big target at some point. So Alex is strong too. And I thought this is a natural choice, I think. So I hit him up immediately. I was like, hey, let's work together. I kind of envision this sort of Malcolm and Denise situation where we can, have kind of a secret alliance. I really didn't want people to know that we had anything going on. So my plan was to say, Alex, let's make an alliance. Now you go that way, I'll go this way. Let's never talk again, but we have to trust this thing. Maybe we meet once a day and kind of compare notes and decide if we're going down who we're going to vote for and all this. So I thought everything was good. And I thought, all right, now the move is not to look like I'm being sneaky and trying to talk to a million people and build all these other little connections. Now I just need to go work. And so I would go, find bamboo, do all the things to try to build a shelter with no machete and no fire and no nothing, because our tribe kept losing. And so it was a little bit weird. The connection with Alex was awesome. But the way that they edited me, it also looked like I was just wandering around the island by myself half the time, which, everybody that watches Survivor is like, that's Survivor 101. You don't leave the tribe. You don't go wandering off by yourself. But what they didn't really show in the edit was I wasn't just wandering around looking for idols or isolating myself or however they kind of tried to position it. I was looking for bamboo. I wanted to build a shelter. I've seen so many episodes of Survivor where these poor little castmates are sitting under this torrential downpour in the middle of the night, freezing. And I was like, I can contribute here. I can help my tribe. I can do something like help build a shelter. So anyway, ultimately, I think that kind of bit me because my relationship with Alex, even though I do think it was real and I think it was strong, I think it's possible that either Jake got to him first or he felt like Jake and Sophie were so close that if he went against that, then he would be next. And I actually, after watching the episode back and seeing everything that was happening around me that I didn't really know about, I think it was the right move for him to vote me out. I really do, for his game, because otherwise he would have been next. And had he played the idol for me, then it would have created this whole rift, and then he would have ripped up his alliance with Jake. And I just think that, as much as it pained me to have him write my name down, I understand why he did it. I really do. So I don't fault Alex. I think he's awesome. I hope he goes really far in the game.
Yeah, and I loved your final hug, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I had no choice." It was
He
really
really
awesome.
didn't. And I didn't know why at the time, but now I do. And I think, I would have done the same thing in his shoes. I understand why he did it.
So in this new era 3 tribe kind of what we've been going on, a lot of times we have the so-called disaster tribe that people like to call online. Did you guys ever view Kelly as that, or was that something talked about, or do you think that it was a lot more out of your control based on what was happening?
No, immediately. We all, as soon as we lost the Maroon Challenge, the fight for supplies, and then the next challenge to go to tribal council, we all were like, uh-oh, wait. When you're looking around and you're trying to figure out who the disaster tribe, and there's not one, you're like, oh, wait. Yep, there is one. And here it is. So yeah, we were a mess. I don't like the 3 tribe situation. Hot take, I think they need to go back to two tribes. I think that it doesn't allow enough development of side relationships. If you're not on the 4-pack, you're out. There's just no way around it. And it's really hard to get into whoever the 4-pack is, because then that creates 3 and 3. So why would that ever give any incentive for somebody to jump ship from the 4-pack, And so I being a little bit on the outside right from the get-go, it would have been a heavy lift for me to get into that 4-pack of people that were kind of a voting block together. And so I don't like the 3-tribe thing. I really don't. I wish they'd go back to 2.
I completely agree. That's the popular opinion, at least around here. But looking at those other tribes, whenever you were on the mat listening to Jeff talk, were there anyone from other tribes that stood out as people that you wished you could have worked with down the road?
There are so many cool people on this cast. I really don't have anything bad to say about anybody, frankly. I really don't, because CBS knows what they're doing when they cast this stuff. Yes, there's always drama and backstabbing and people who are kind of made to look one way or another. But then you meet them in real life and you're like, that was just the edit. It's still great TV. You want as much drama as you can. So I really don't have anything bad to say about anybody. But looking at the other tribes, I loved MC. How can you not? An Amazon of a woman who can beat everybody on our entire tribe at everything. You just can't help but love her. but there are so many other great people too. I mean, I think that Steven is really, really cool. That guy's super smart. I wish I would have had a chance to get to know him a little bit better. I think he would have been awesome. Christina's got a great personality. Sophie's got a great, like, bubbly, friendly. I think there's so many great people. Jason's super smart. I mean, there's a ton of people. I didn't get to know them because I didn't make the merge. So it's not like I got to know all these guys and say, okay, here's your pluses and minuses. So all I'm basing this on is the smiles from across the mat, or how well somebody did in a challenge, or what kind of vibes they were giving off. So I think there were a lot of really cool people on both of those tribes. Yeah, that would have been fun to work with. I think my strategy and my personality, different season, different tribe, might have done just fine. People kind of get on my case about, the isolation thing, but honestly, it was so much the edit. It really was not me just wandering off and isolating myself. So yeah, I think that we had a lot of really cool people on all of these tribes, and I think it was just my game and my strategy in this particular tribe, particular season just didn't work.
Something that we talked about a lot last week was the challenge twist, where Alex was able to, or excuse me, I'm getting everyone all mixed up, but the journey where everyone was able to go and kind of decide the fate of for themselves or for their tribe. And the three of us have been low-key haters about the twists and turns on 47, 48. There hasn't been anything too crazy, 49 that we're aware of as of right now. But we loved how someone was able to decide the fate for others and for their tribe. What did you think about that, like being part of it?
I think it's always interesting. CBS has to keep this game, has to keep us as fans on our toes. It has to keep players on their toes. They're always throwing in new stuff to say, okay, how is this going to affect the game? And it's already a weird game. You're already putting all these people that would never cross paths in regular life together and saying, okay, you guys can figure it out. And also you have no food and you have to poop in the ocean and good luck, and then that's already hard enough. And then you drop these little, here's a beware advantage. Here's some kind of a challenge where you can put your entire tribe at risk, and you can go eat a sandwich. And it's weird, but I like some of that. I didn't love the 30s with, Redemption Island, some of the weird stuff that they threw in back then. I felt like it was a little too much, too complicated, made the game really kind of convoluted what's even happening right now. But these little ones where they throw in stuff like that, I kind of like it because you just never know. And it also makes you wonder every time, from a player's perspective, every time somebody comes back from any kind of a journey or challenge or anything, you don't believe anything they say, because you're like, I've seen this movie before and I know you got something. Did you lose your vote, or did you win an immunity, or did you get a sandwich, and did you make friends with everyone else from the other tribe? You just question everything they say. And until you see it back on TV, you really have no idea if what they were telling you was even true. So when we were watching, Alex doing that challenge and Rizzo looking at his puzzle and kind of digging the thing up because Alex couldn't find it, I was like, wow, he actually was telling us what happened out there. But none of us really believed that, at the time. So I think it's interesting. It's fun. It's probably fun for fans. It's definitely fun from a playing perspective, even though it makes it kind of crazy.
Yeah. So we've seen musicians have mixed success on Survivor over the past few years, with Ben making it far, Maya making it pre-merge, Coach making it kind of far. What do you think being a musician brings to the game, both as a strength and maybe as a challenge?
It's actually a good question. I don't know if I have a great answer, because here's the thing about me. So I went on there with the intent of just positioning myself as musician. I have a rock band. I'm just a little girl. I don't know anything about anything. But I don't know that was actually, in hindsight, here I sit and they're all still out there, right? So I don't know that was necessarily the best strategy. But in my mind, I didn't want them to know that I'm a CEO of a company. I'm a doctor. I analyze running biomechanics for a living. Like, I'm not just a musician. And so to me, the musician thing was a benefit, or I at least tried to use it as a benefit, because I didn't want them to think that I was this is going to sound terrible to all the musicians I know, but I didn't want them to think I was smart, you know? So I was like, this is going to sound so bad to say, like, I just went as a musician, so they didn't think I was smart. That's not how I really mean it, but I think you guys get the point, you know? So anyway, I don't know that it helped me or hurt me in this game in particular. I think the reason I didn't tell everybody about all the other stuff is because I didn't want them to think I was playing the game. But I ultimately don't know, you know, because like I say, here I sit. So I don't know that it really helped me or hurt me at all. But yeah, I mean, I've loved watching the musicians because they think a little bit differently. They're always, I do think one thing about being a creative is you are kind of always thinking outside the box, for better or worse. You're thinking of creative solutions and things that maybe are not the traditional path for most people's brains. So whether that helps or hurts, I don't know. But it is interesting to watch musicians and creative people play the game.
Talking about all that other stuff, you've had a crazy journey with Run Lab and being a CEO to switching completely to doing music. Would you kind of want to introduce that story a little bit to any Survivor fans who are unfamiliar with what you've done to get to where you are now?
I would love that because in some of my pregame interviews, I talked about some of this stuff. And, you know, they always say, never read the comments. But how can you not? You're like, I'm so excited. I have this, you know, this post that CBS had shared with me with my interview. And then all of a sudden you see all these comments like, what a freak, what a whack job. What 50-year-old has purple hair and she dresses like she's 20? What's wrong with her? And it's just like, over and over and over again. I'm like, oh my God, you know, these people are horrible. And so it's hard to not let that stuff get in, right? And kind of soak it in a little bit. But I'll tell you what's cool is that the backstory on the band. So just the kind of in a nutshell backstory is that I grew up super poor, welfare, food stamps, like lots of love, just not lots of money, single parent household, that whole thing. So I knew at a very early age there was going to be no money for college. So I decided in my little fifth grade brain that I was going to teach myself a skill so that I could always pay my bills. So, of course, at 10, I was like, musicians can always make money. And so my dumb little brain was like, I've got a skill and I'll learn to play the trumpet. So I ended up putting myself through college on trumpet scholarship. And so I kind of got towards the end of college and was like, holy crap, I'm going to end up right back on food stamps and welfare. Like, what have I done, you know? And so I made this big pivot. I got into the biomechanics world. I was doing triathlons for the first time. I got into Ironmans and all that. Sort of was struggling with injuries over and over, got frustrated, was kind of set up to go down I was a volunteer firefighter and a EMT at the time, so I wanted to go into emergency medicine. But I ended up making this big pivot because I loved running biomechanics and like trying to help people understand how they move. So I got my doctorate, started a company called Run Lab. Have had that now for 13 years or so. And we just help analyze people's mechanics. I have physical therapists that work for me, and we all just, you know, help people move better. Well, then COVID, right before COVID hit, I ended up having to, I mean, nobody cares about their running biomechanics when they think they're all going to die from a virus, you know, that nobody understands. And so I ended up having to lay off, you know, 28 of my employees. It was horrible. It was one of the worst days of my life. These were my friends. These were people who helped me build this company. It was awful. So I picked up guitar during COVID, and it was a way to kind of process a lot of this stuff. And I had lost my dad to cancer right before that. And it was just, I was carrying around a lot of things. So I bought a guitar and I thought, you know what? I've always been terrified of the idea of singing in front of people. I've never done it in my life. I've never even done karaoke. I just want to do this once. So I wrote a song. It was all one chord because that's all I could play. And I went out to an open mic that was still kind of operating during COVID. And I sang my little song and I fell in love with songwriting. I was like, you know what? I didn't die of fear. Nobody threw a tomato at my head. You know, a little whiskey helps, but whatever. You know, and so I did this song and I really fell in love with it. And so as COVID started to lift, I kind of spent a bunch of time writing, put a band together, put out my first song. And this is how it all circles back to the mean comments and all of the judgment and stuff that I was mentioning a second ago. So when I put my first song out, I put it out under my name, under Annie Davis. Super proud of it. Big vulnerable moment, but very proud. I was 44 at the time. And the very first comment I got on social media was about my clothes being too young for me. And who do I think I am, you know, getting into rock and roll in my 40s. And you know, it was heartbreaking because it's a scary world out there. I had never really been in social media. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't know how bad it was. And so all of that stuff came flooding in, and I thought, yeah, what am I doing? This is horrible. Let me go back into my turtle shell, you know? And then I thought, wait a minute, screw this whole thing. We should be able to wear what we want, be who we are, no matter what age we are, chase our dreams. You know, you find something you love, you go after it. I don't care if you're 95 freaking years old, you know? So that was kind of where the name Trashy Annie came from, because I just decided just gonna lean in, I'm gonna do my purple hair, I'm gonna wear my tutus on stage, and let's go. So that's where the band came from, and so it's been kind of a crazy thing to see some of that stuff bubbling back up again, where I thought I had created some peace with the haters out there and said, it's okay, I've got thick skin, I'm used to this. And then when I jumped into the Survivor stuff, it all came back again. Like, oh, now there's a whole new slew of haters who want to tell me, why they don't like me and why they don't like how I look or how I dress or that my glittery eyeshadow or whatever. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? So to circle all this back, and I know this isn't really what you asked, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it's awesome. I got this message the other day, like 2 days ago, and it was this picture of this sweet little girl. She's 5, and her name's Aurora, and I don't even know where she lives, but her parents sent me this picture of her holding this little homemade sign, she said, that said, Annie, you're the best, and it's this little drawing of me with little pink pigtails. It makes me want to go and cry. It's little pink pigtails, and the parents were like, she picked you. She's watched 2 seasons of Survivor, and this year we did like a family fantasy league, and she picked you, and she was devastated when you got voted off, but she processed it by making you this sign. So we wanted to show you, that she's your biggest fan, and you've taught her to stand up for people that are okay being themselves. And I just I get goosebumps even thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? This is why I do this stuff. Because it's not for all those people who complain about my hair. It's for the 5-year-old girl out there that maybe thinks she's a little bit of an outlier or whatever, and teaching her that it's okay to be her, And so that's why I'm on this show, and I love it. And that's why Trashy Annie is what it is, because it's for those little girls, and for the little boys, all of them. Everybody, be yourselves. It's okay, So anyway, that's a very long version to say that's kind of the backstory on Trashy Annie.
I love
Well,
it.
thank you for
Just
all of that.
yeah.
And just to kind of follow up on a little bit of that, even though I'm definitely significantly older than her, we do our own draft, and that's the exact reason that I picked you as one of my players, was you reminded me from like your initial interviews of all of the badass women I've grown up loving on the show, like a Suri and a Parvati and a Sandra, but then also Malcolm's my favorite player. So seeing that kind of in your spirit, where even in more recent seasons, someone like Sue, where you're unapologetically yourself, and even if other people on the island don't want to play with you to make it far, you're representing the type of personality that I love seeing represented on the show.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Of
And
course.
I wish that they would. I feel like I feel like I got a little bit of an old lady edit. There was a little bit of this like, she's not important. Look at her behind everybody in the challenge. And I'm like, I know what happened out there, and I know who was behind in the challenges, and I know what was happening, and I wasn't the biggest problem. And so it was frustrating to see the way that they edited it, because I feel like I want people that are 50 years old to look at this and say, I could do that. That resonates with me. And the way that a lot of times this isn't a, I think it's, this isn't me throwing CBS under the bus at all, because I very much respect their casting process and everything that they do to make the show amazing for their fans. I love the show. But I do think that it would be really great if people like me could see people like me and say, oh, she's out, yeah, maybe she's not connecting with her tribe, but holy crap, she's contributing a lot in camp, and holy crap, she built that whole shelter by herself, and like all of my tribe mates were so thankful of all of that, and they didn't show any of that stuff. And that, I think, is a disservice to the older population of fans who watch this show. I kind of Googled, I don't know if this is accurate information because it came from ChatGPT, but I was like, well, how many women over 45 have been on Survivor? And it was something like 12, or I think I'm the 13th, and the large majority don't make the merge, because we're just used to being like, kind of discounted as a population. I think that's a bummer. So it bummed me out to feel like I was going in there as I'm 50 going on 9, and I get that, but I thought I can break in, I can do it. And I just feel, I don't know, I was a little bit frustrated that the edit kind of made me a little bit unimportant. And I don't know, it seemed like anyway, from the way I saw it. So I don't even know
Well,
why
you
we're
were
on that
very
tangent.
important to us.
No,
We were rooting you
yes, because
on.
we were agreeing, we had that exact sentiment
We
where
had the exact same combo.
even though you might be in like the older survivor category of over the age of 40, you still are very youthful. And I feel like that's important to show where just because you're over the age of 40 doesn't mean you have to act like it. And then
And
on the show,
Sean
you
from
had a
last
lot of
season feels
smart
the same way.
points. Yes, on the show, you had a lot of smart points of like, Jake is a threat. Why aren't we emphasizing the intelligence of that type of comment rather than just putting it down? Since obviously the edit is kind of following the tribe sentiment of Jake's group kind of won that vote. But
Yep.
totally
Yep.
agree.
Well, my
um,
thought was we need to split up. We'll see how this plays out, but my thought was we need to split up Jake and Sophie. The two of them are tight, and I there was a something they didn't show, but I woke up in the middle of the night on like I don't remember what it was day 3 or whatever, where everybody's sleeping on the beach, and the two of them were sitting right next to each other, and I was like, it's 2 in the morning, and they're having this super intimate conversation. I thought this is not good. The two of them were because up to this point, I knew they had some like Jake wanted to work with Sophie, but I thought he's really tied in with Alex, and she's doing whatever she's doing. Uh, I didn't know that the two of them really had a thing, not that strong anyway. And so I'm creeping over there on the sand, like trying to listen in and then pretend like I'm sleeping like an idiot. But anyway, they would look over and I'd be like, so anyway, but I thought these two are working together. And so the next morning I got up and I told Alex, I'm like, we have to split them up. And so originally we kind of were of the mindset I didn't think I could personally trust Jake because I knew how close he was with Alex. I knew Alex could trust him, but I was like, that doesn't play well for my game. So my vote would be on him to get him out for the reasons we've talked about. He's gonna beat us all in challenges. He's gonna be a huge threat. And if he's not at all loyal to me, then he needs to go bye-bye. So I thought, well, let's put the vote on him. But then Sophie was just so weak in that challenge where I got voted off. I thought she's the natural choice to split them up. Let's get rid of her because we really do have to eat. So maybe we need to use Jake's brawn for a little bit longer to try to get us to the point where we can get fire. But obviously that was not how the tribe looked at it. The tribe these days, I think in new era Survivor, people value the social game. It's weighted differently than it used to be. I think back in the day there was a little bit of an equal weight on contributions at camp and strength and challenges and kind of working as a tribe to not have to go to tribal council. I think nowadays people are it's so much social. I hate to say this, but it's almost turning into kind of like Big Brother on an island. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but that's kind of how I feel about it. It's becoming so socially based. And I kind of miss the old like survival part, like let's actually be out there trying to survive too. It's part of the fun of it all. So I miss that stuff.
Definitely. And talking about the Survivor fans, obviously there are going to be a lot of people that are newly introduced to your music. So if you could choose which song of yours that new fans from the show who haven't heard yet, I don't think I worded that right, so I'm going to try it again. If you could choose which of your songs fans listen to for the first time out of all of your discography, which would you choose and why?
So I've got a new album coming out on October 31st, and I'm super
Let
excited
it
about
kill
it. It's called Let
you.
It Kill You. Yeah, it's called Let It Kill You because
Yay.
there's this quote that says "Find the thing you love and let it kill you," and I was like, this speaks to me. So that's gonna be out then. But my first album, and it goes back to a little bit about the Trashy Annie story. It's called Sticks and Stones, and the back album art is all screenshots of all the mean things people said to me on social media, like with their handles and everything. And then the front album art is just the glittery middle finger. And so I called it Sticks and Stones. It says, you know what, we gotta do what we want, regardless of what all these people are saying. So there's a song on that album on Sticks and Stones called Born Pretty, and I feel like this song it represents what I believe and what Trashy Annie stands for, which is, beauty comes in all shapes and sizes and all forms. And so it's about this girl who's got a glass eye and a unibrow and little bitty titties and greasy hair and all this stuff. And the chorus is, the boys are making noise saying, how do you make it? How do you make it in this big bad city? And she says, I don't know. I guess I was just born this pretty. So it's all about a girl who just loves herself no matter what she looks like or what other people think about her. And that song has also always meant so much to me because of that. And so I think, it sort of represents Trashy Annie and sort of what I believe in. So yeah, Born Pretty. And then I will say off this new album, there's a cover of me and Julio down by the schoolyard that I did as a punk version. Big fan of that one
So
too.
good.
I've always
It's
loved
so
that
good.
song. Yeah, thank you. I love that song so much. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So with that coming out October 31st, we have a few singles coming out this week. We got Jake, which interests me based off the title. I which also inspired me to ask this question of being out in Fiji while you weren't out there for so long. You had a week to be able to be out there. How did that influence your music and creativity, especially while making Let It Kill You? And can Survivor fans expect to kind of get some of that experience on this new record?
Okay, so very important point here. I wrote Jake a long time ago before I ever met Jake. And it will, when you hear the song, you'll understand that that's a very important point. But yes, that one's coming out
Different
soon.
Jakes, different Jakes.
And then I don't think he hasn't heard it yet, so it's gonna be a funny. Oh, it's gonna be a funny moment. It's gonna get weird. So, yeah, Jake comes out, and then Big Red Bow, which I super love, and that one's got a little angsty stuff, but it's also kind of about just being yourself, and just f the world who's gonna tell you how to be. So it's a little bit of that too. But yeah, there's some stuff on this album that even though it was sort of written pre-Survivor, it has a lot of threads that are reminiscent of kind of what was in my head when I was there. There's a song called Migraine that, I mean, I wrote it mostly before I was out there and then kind of finished it up after I got back because it's all about the head trash. It's all about the stuff that keeps us up at night. And you come back from filming and you question everything. It's really hard to reintegrate. It's almost like you feel like, and I don't want to make light of this in this way, but it's almost like you feel like you're coming back from war in some way because you've been isolated from everything and everybody that you know. And you've been put with a bunch of strangers who have judged you and backstabbed and lied. And maybe you've, had loved and lost and all of the things that it's a microcosm of life, right? We talk about this all the time with Survivor. And so I think when you come back from a situation like that and you're thrown back into your normal life with people who weren't there with you and don't understand and you couldn't call them and explain what was happening in real time, there's just a lot of head garbage. I think that every single one of us, whether you finish first or 18th, we all go through a lot of this stuff because even if you win, you've had to do some backstabbing, you've had to hurt some people along the way, and that messes with you. I came out second and I hated voting out Nicole. I hated writing Sophie's name down, and that was the night I went home. So you just come back with a lot of questions about yourself, about people around you, about what the world thinks of you. And so some of that I think is going to come through on this new album. I dealt with some of that anyway before going out there, but it magnified it coming back. And so I think you'll feel some of that with this new album. It's a little heavier. It's a little more rock and roll than the first one. A little bit less country, a little bit of country stuff on there too. But, it almost feels to me like a mixtape. I love writing music. I try to serve the song. I write the lyrics first. I'm like, okay, where do these lyrics go? What kind of song should I wrap these in? And so I think it's going to be a fun album. I really do.
I'm curious to know, is Trashy Annie, is that another name for you, or is that like an alternate personality, kind of like how Donald Glover is Childish Gambino?
Right. It is. So I named the band Trashy Annie. I never meant it to be, hey, I'm Trashy Annie. Annie's my middle name, and so that's what I go by and have for a while. But it's sort of morphed into just people, oh, that's Trashy Annie. It feels like it's one and the same these days. But I always named it that because I never wanted to be a solo artist. I always wanted to have a band. And I was like, this is a cool kind of rock and roll punk sounding type of name for a band. And it jives with the whole, story behind why I named it that. So it's really not supposed to be me, but it's sort of developed that life of its own because people now just call me, oh, you're Trashy Annie. So I just kind of lean into it. It's fun.
We love it. And I mean, what better way to see a band than see them live? And I know you are on tour right now. all of October and November, and you'll even be performing at the finale show. So for you Survivor fans, be in New York, be sure to see Annie. What are you looking most forward to in the future? Do you have anything you would like to shout out before we conclude this interview?
No, man, I think the album release, I'm so excited. This album's been a couple of years in the making. It's really great to bring it to fruition, and it sounds awesome. It's it's a really good album. I'm really proud of it. Top to bottom, I love this thing. So the album release is a big one for me. And then I do think the finale party is a really big one for me too, because we're joining Bryce and Wendell for a bunch of their watch parties. And that one's going to be the biggest, and a blast, but we're also joining them for a bunch of the rest of them too. And it is just so much fun. It's so much, whether I'm on the season anymore or not, it doesn't matter. Being surrounded by that many people that are there for the same reason and having fun together and kind of, it's all in good fun. People root against me or, oh, yay, Annie got voted out tonight. But it's just a game and it's all in good fun. I know these people don't actually hate me. They're just, either they don't know me or they're just having fun with the game. And that's what it's about. So I think it's just fun to be around fans and castmates and previous players and all that. It's a blast. So I'm looking forward to this whole season of watch parties.
I think we're all super lucky to have you as part of the Survivor family. I really do. Thank you so much for taking the time. The
Thank
link
you,
below,
Brett.
we are going to have a pre-save link to Let It Kill You out October 31st. I almost said August. October 31st. And the two singles will be out by the time this video comes out. So we got Jake, not about the Jake on this season, coming out on Thursday. And then we also have our last single, Big Red Bow. So please be sure to stream and see her live if you have a chance. It's
Yes.
just I've seen some clips. I'm loving it. I wish you were playing in an area near me
We'll get
next
there.
time.
Where I don't know even
Next
where
time.
you are, but we'll figure it out because we
Exactly.
have lots of tour stops planned.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much.